I'd like to call the meeting to order. If everybody could please stand for the meeting pledge.
Which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Mr. Hernandez. Mrs. Gaddy. Mr. Kraus. Mr. LaFever. Mr. Masiello. Mrs. Romano. Mrs.
Yes. Before we move on, board member reports. I would just like to say that we have a sign-up sheet if anybody would like to speak during public comments. If you could sign your name, and then when we're ready, we can go ahead with that. So, board member reports.
Thank you, Mrs. Romano. Welcome, everyone. Several items. We are honored to announce that Fieldstone Middle School is accredited as a state and national schools to watch. There are only 35 middle schools in New York that have this accreditation. Congratulations to Mrs. Zolo and the Fieldstone Middle School staff, students, parents, and all those that participated in this effort. A formal rollout will be coming in the future. On Saturday, February 24th, the North Rockland Navy Junior ROTC drill team won first of 10 teams. The cadets placed first in the varsity inspection, armed arm platoon, exemplary conduct, second in armed platoon, and third in varsity color guard. In the first year category, the cadets were first in armed arm platoon and third in color guard. We are so proud of our ROTC program. They also turn out a lot of community for a lot of different events. They're a wonderful organization. Great students.
Great.
I just want to add to the ROTC today. Dr. Felicello and I were at the high school, and two of our cadets were awarded by the Navy with the highest recognition that you could award a cadet, because they were working at Patriot Hills and actually saved a person's life who was beginning to choke. And it was their quick action that really they called 911, they started assisting the person. So all the adults in the room and everyone else, it was our two cadets that were really responsible for saving that person's life. So they got the highest award today awarded. So we'll be bringing them for recognition.
Fantastic, fantastic. Sports update. I feel like a sportscaster. There's a lot happening in North Rockland. Hockey, Section 1 conference champs for the first time since 1985. They are also regional champs and will be playing in the state Final Four in Buffalo this Saturday. Bowling, boys and girls teams are Section 1 champs and will be competing at the state championship in Syracuse this Sunday. Cheerleaders, Section 1 champs, came in third place in New York State Championships last weekend in Syracuse. The girls track team had 2 individual state champs and a state champ relay team. Fantastic. The boys track team finished third in the state. Swimming, boys and girls had several individual and relay place at the state championship. On Wednesday, this is very important because this hits hard in a lot of communities. No one is immune to this. On Wednesday, March 21st at 7 p.m., North Rockland High School will host the Perfect Storm, a prescription drug and heroin epidemic. A well-informed panel of speakers will be sharing vital information every parent should know. Now, this was I know there's a lot of music people here tonight. Mr. James Mahoney, Rose Memorial Library Director, sent a beautiful thank you letter to Ms. Santillo, North Rockland High School Choir Director, and her students for their performance on January 11th, Hamilton's birthday, at Rose Memorial Library. Mr. Mahoney was skeptical at first if the students could perform in a small library, but our students made it happen and gave a remarkable performance. Well done. North Rockland High School has established a new scholarship program website, easily accessed from their homepage. This new site is designed to provide the North Rockland community and potential donors with an interactive, informative way to learn about their scholarship program. The site features 3 ways for potential donors to contribute to their already outstanding scholarship program. Last year, over $320,000 in scholarships was awarded to our graduating students. As always, we thank our generous community for their never-ending support. And that $320,000 doesn't include all the external scholarships that they get from schools and all that. So it's a great program they're running at the high school. The Norfolk High School Drama Society presents the Pajama Game. Performances start on Monday, March 9th and run through March 17th. Visit the high school website for complete details. On Friday, March 23rd at 6:30 p.m., the Norfolk High School PTA will be hosting Pocketbook Bingo. Please visit the high school website for complete details. Also, Ms. Anini's here from the Norfolk High School PTA. This upcoming Friday, March 9th, is Staff Development Day, no student attendance. All Norfolk schools will be closed from Friday, March 30th through April 8th for spring break. However, there may be a big asterisk next to that depending if there's a snow day tomorrow, which looks like it's imminent. Monday, April 9th is Superintendent's Conference, Parent Teachers Conference at all schools, no student attendance. And just to remind everyone, each of the high schools has their own respective website. A lot of this information that's shared here, including budget presentations, you can go on the Norfolk main website and go under Board of Education. All the budget presentations are posted in there, including the last kindergarten one that a lot of people inquire about. All that information is there. The minutes to these meetings, afterwards, everything is posted on there, and each of the schools has their own very detailed, well-run websites. That's all I have, Mr.
Excuse me, I just want to add one thing. I'd like to encourage as many people as possible to attend the Perfect Storm, the drug awareness program. We did it 2 years ago. Maciel and I are on the health committee, so we're more involved with at least the preparation for that. There are tables from every organization in Rockland that's involved with helping people in this area. It's a good way for parents to understand some of the problems and recognition. And I personally just, if you have a friend who you think could benefit from this, I don't just mean a student, a parent, a relative, or somebody. It's really, really a good program. Endless resources and wonderful speakers. It's just very, very good. We did it 2 years ago. It was very well attended. This one is even more thorough, and there's so many groups involved. So, it's at the high school. You don't have to stay. Thank you.
And I know, Mr. Fernandez, you mentioned the dates that the play of the Pajama Game is going to be performed at the high school. I just want to give a shout out to all those kids that work on that show. I think that the parents this week are feeding over 100 students, and it's remarkable. It's the kids on the stage, and you see them, and that's wonderful, and they are amazingly talented young men and women. And then you have the pit, and it's just the largest student pit that I've ever seen. And I do, travel to some other schools and other places to see performances because that is what I love. But it's also the lighting, it's the sound, it's the stage that they built, it's everything that these kids do. It's the production, it's running the different things back and forth off the stage. It really is an absolutely remarkable show of all the talents of all of our kids and so many of our kids in the district. So I'd love you to come out, and as you're watching that amazing performance, just take a note of all the special talents that you see from our kids throughout that whole auditorium. So come on out and see it. I think the tickets are about $15. You can buy them on the high school website. It's a cheap form of entertainment right here in your neighborhood, and you see just the most remarkably talented young men and women. So do you want to introduce?
Yes, and with that, it gives us great pleasure tonight to introduce Mrs. Lang at the Fieldstone Middle School Orchestra.
Most of them participated in the All County Festivals in January and February, so it's grades 7 to 12. So they have gotten together this evening to perform for us. The piece they're performing is
And now it gives me great pleasure, and you saw a great sampling of North Rockland music. And tonight we recognize, I know we talked about, and Mr. Fernandez mentioned that several of our teams that made it in one section in states, and who we recognize tonight in music, in the music world. I like to say those are the sectionals and state championships of music. They're kids that are selected countywide and compete countywide for designations in these festivals. So they're among our most talented musicians in the district. So I will turn it over to Mrs. Virginia Stellato, the coordinator of music.
Board of Education and Central Office for arranging this recognition for our students. I'm going to start with our junior all-county comprises 7th, 8th, and 9th graders. I have a feeling a lot of our 9th graders may be involved in technical rehearsal tonight for the show, so if they're not here, I'm sure that's why. But from junior all-county band, Grace Babcock, Jamie Kapuzinski, Eric Kessler, Edwin Marquardt, Amanda Sherman, and Alessandro Troncoso. Congratulations. For orchestra from the high school, Xander Barron, Maria Dela de Mora, Harrison Gerson, Stephen Konopko, Yi Lin, Adrian Ramos, Giovanni Romero. I don't know how many of them are putting away their instruments. From Junior All-County Mixed Chorus, Shane Casey, Aiden Hoey, and Amani St. Fleur. And from Treble Chorus, Kaylee Babcock, Leanna Foley, Kyara Piscaros, and Allison Spahn. If any of the orchestra students coming in now are from the high school, please come on down and get your certificate. Xander, Maria Dela, Harrison, Stephen, Yi, Adrian, and Giovanni. Come on down, Yi. Come on down, Harrison. Stephen. have from here at Fieldstone Middle School, our junior all-county musicians from the band, Sophia Andrievsky, Ashley Barron, Katya Fodor, Connor Hoban, Logan Kapuzinski, Helen Lee, Sravanth Mala, Micah Rowe, Marcelo Troncoso, and Jasmine Wood. From the orchestra here at Fieldstone at Junior All-County, Agne Adumaskaiti, Gabrielle Colon, Roni Cruz, John Despaltro, Patrick Johnson, Daniela Palomaro, Yuseni Perez, and Jessica Singh. Congratulations. Mixed chorus, Donovan Alcias, Jordan Alvarez, Amoni Alonso, Sofia Carlavaro, Romades Calise, Edward Signa, Don Jordan Duplan, Jenna Mackey, Diana Martucci, Brandon McCallum, Armando Mendez, Sophia Nardone, Oluwase Ogunlei, Thomas Prost, Nyla Rosario, Aaron Velez, and Christopher Victor. Congratulations. And our treble chorus students, Daniel Margolis, Victoria Malone, and Lisa Prestipino. Congratulations. And thanks to all of them for representing their problems so well. And for their ongoing support of the arts programs here in Red Rock. Thank you.
Okay. Is everybody able to get it on their device? If not, it's up behind you. So we're getting closer, as you know, to, we have to submit on March 1st. As you know, that's the deadline that we submit our tax levy cap, and that has to be submitted to the state based on the calculation that the state provides. So we did submit that on March 1st, or last Friday. Again, for many that are unfamiliar with our trajectory since settling the Myron tax sanctuary, we always have this slide that lets people know where we were, where we are, what we've done along the way. And again, we won't read everything, but we know that there have been massive reductions in our district in terms of lost positions. We know that we've redone how we do things. We've closed buildings. We've changed insurance plans. We've done everything within our power to try to contain the debt and make those payments of almost $12 million a year possible while maintaining the strength of program that we offer in North Rockland. And obviously that's our number one charge, is to provide students in the district with the best education possible at a cost that the community can sustain. We know that certain costs during these times have gone out of control a little bit. We know the retirement systems have had huge spikes. We know health insurance has had huge spikes. We're dealing with another spike this year. Thankfully not as bad as originally was anticipated, but still a pretty severe spike in insurance costs. So foundation aid and the ratio by district, we went over this slide in the last meeting. But again, it's interesting to see that the Haverstraw-Stony Point Central School District, compared to all the other districts in the county, we are the poorest, both in property wealth and income wealth. We are below the state average. The state average, as you see there in the first column, is 1.0, and we are at 0.704. Everyone else in the county, including East Ramapo, that everybody knows there's a lot of poverty in that district as well. But in terms of property wealth and income wealth, they're in both categories above us, and they are above the state average. Interesting also, in the shortfall of state aid, you can see at the bottom what the percentage of shortfall is, and ours is significant, 37.5%. It's interesting how these formulas are calculated by the state of New York, because you see the wealthiest district in the county, South Orangetown, has the least amount of shortfall. So that's, you know, like those numbers in my mind don't add up, but we don't have anything to do with how the state calculates that foundation aid. And we know that it was frozen several years ago. We know they don't use current data. We know they don't use current census data. So all those things hurt us, because our district has had an increase in poverty and in the demographics of the children that we serve. So we're not getting the real aid based on real numbers that we have today. We also have not had a declining enrollment as other districts in the county have had. So again, that's not accounted for. Yes.
Foundation, right now, we got 200 additions next year. That doesn't mean.
No.
Not what it is.
No. Yeah.
So if the enrollment goes up, we're gonna get more.
We're maxed out at our foundation aid, right? So under the governor's proposal, you see here what the increase in aid is across the state. And in the graph in the bottom, interestingly enough, and I know that there are good sound bites in terms of, we always hear the governor saying this is the largest aid package and it's more than ever before, but these things are actually put out by school boards. And you'll see underneath, the graph underneath, what's in that mustard color is actually the foundation aid, because the whole 768 million that you see on top is not all allocated to foundation aid, which is what is equally distributed among schools. In that money, it's the money that goes to community schools, to other pet projects, the 3-year-olds having full day preschool. And our districts in the county don't qualify for any of those grants. And most districts across the state don't qualify for those grants. It's the big 5 that qualify for a lot of those special grants. but all that comes out of the total aid. So when you look at really what's distributed in foundation aid, both last year and this year, there's a significant reduction from the year before. And that's the mustard color graph. Our state aid proposal for next year, where we stand now with the governor's proposal. Remember, this is March Madness in Albany. It's when the budget finally is finalized. The two House budgets are due, I think, on the 13th of March, are due out. So we'll see where the Senate comes in. We'll see where the legislature, the Assembly comes in. And then we know that all three bodies have to kind of hash it out and we get a final budget. And where we are right now, all the numbers that we have at this point are the governor's budget, and where we are right now is at an increase of 2.2 million or 3.66%. You see the universal pre-K there, that number, that money really is not touched by us at all, is turned over to Children's Resource Services who run our pre-K program. And that number has not increased in over 20 years at this point. We have the same amount of slots, and each slot is allotted the same amount of money. It hasn't increased in over 20 years. State aid calculated but not received. Again, they still put on our runs what fully funded would be, and to Rich's answer, that would be including all the new, students that we have, all the demographic changes that we have. If we were fully funded on our state aid, we would be receiving an additional $30 million this year. And this is what we've lost in terms of not being fully funded. On top of that, you had the 7 years of GEA, and that money was already in our foundation aid and removed from our foundation aid for those years. So not only were we frozen in foundation aid in 2009-10, but then we were reduced in foundation aid to the tune of $29 million over those 7 years. And we've been told that's money that's gone, it's never coming back to districts. On top of that, we have not been fully funded since that campaign for fiscal equity. We were fully funded for 2 years under Spitzer, and then frozen and then reduced. Tax cap calculation, again, we'll go over it briefly one more time. Our growth factor really helped us this year, and our tax cap calculation staying within the levy limit imposed by the state. It's really an increase of 4.9% this year. Now, notice on the bottom, it has not even been close to 2% the 3 years before that, and probably a year before that either. So this is the first year that it's actually above 2%, and that's why that tax cap is not a 2% tax cap. It's simply a formula tax cap on your levy, but it's not 2% of anything. It could be much less than 2% one year, it could be 2%, it could be above 2%, depending on those other factors that you have to multiply, subtract, and divide to get the formula. But this year, the formula does help us a bit in terms of adding revenues to that levy that we know has been artificially low in this district, and we have been supplanting it through reserves, and it helps us get the levy up a little closer to where it needs to be if the budget passes. Again, the proposed budget this year, we have another question mark added to our budget situation in terms of full-day kindergarten. We know that the governor has enhanced the transition aid for districts that don't have full-day kindergarten. And if you transition this year, he has proposed not just funding it fully the first year, but funding it at a tune of 50% the second year. That is in his proposal. We don't know what the Senate and Assembly will do with that and what the final outcome will be. We know that on our own, just based on the 1 year of support, we really cannot transition to full-day kindergarten because it's 1 year and then you're on your own and you don't get any additional aid, as Rich stated and pointed out. If we do have this enhanced aid with some other funding that could be available to us, we would be able to put in full-day kindergarten. It may only be for a few years, since when that cliff comes, we'll be looking at not just full-day kindergarten, but other things as well. If we can resolve the Myron sustainability by then, we know that we keep trying to stretch that out with additional funds that come to the district any which way we can to push out that cliff as much as we can, but we know that it exists. So we have in the middle, 2 projections for next year. You'll see the one on the left-hand side that says projection 3/6/2008, what the proposed budget is, what the increase in the proposed budget is, and what the final revenue would be and what the final budget numbers are. So the proposed budget is an increase of 1.8, and we did adjust what we would be using from reserves out of that. We did reduce the insurance projection in that budget line. You'll see that right next to that, you'll have a budget that's exactly the same, but then in the third line, we're adding the full day kindergarten. And that's the 2.4 that you see there additional, so that brings that budget up to 223 million. And you see that the levy would be the same because we can't increase the levy anymore, and that money would be coming back to us. So the levy stays the same, what we would use from reserve stays the same, but we do have to reflect that increase in the budget because it's money that we have to pay out, although the revenue for that would be coming in from the state. So we're not increasing the levy to have the full day kindergarten next year. If this additional funding comes through, we would not be increasing what we use out of reserves. It's basically a wash, but we do have to reflect the additional expenditure in the total budget. So that's why you see those 2 lines are a little different. And then we spoke about the failed budget. If the budget fails, you don't get the additional revenue, obviously, in the levy. So that has to be made up either from reductions or from additional funds that we would use from reserves. And we said that we don't even know what that exact number might be at this point, but we would have to make a decision at that time. Do we increase what we're using in reserves, or do we make some additional reductions? I have to say, and you know this, making additional reductions at this point is extremely difficult in this district because we have reduced 26% of our staff. So anything that we do from here on in really hurts programs, it hurts how we keep our buildings, it hurts the services that we provide. But what you would have to make up in those 2 is about $5.8 million. You'll see here the proposed expenditures, and I won't go through every line. You know that this is on the website, and you can certainly ask me any questions you want on this. But the lines where you see a little more, the 3.35%, transportation, health services, tax certs. We know that transportation, we had to add some additional monies for some out-of-district non-public runs that we inherited this year. We anticipate there'll be a few more of those, so we had to add some additional funds there. Yes.
When it comes to transportation, there's been talk in Albany about curtailing the expense back to the districts for transportation. Is that moving forward, or we don't know, or the governor?
It was capping it at 2%.
Yeah.
What the governor had proposed in his budget is that they would cap the expenditure aid, so that it wouldn't just be transportation, it would be, for example, BOCES services, anything that we get reimbursed on, purchases that we get reimbursed on,
So
capping those expenditures at 2%.
That 2% would mean if we have increased transportation costs, basically we're not gonna get what we get funded now.
That's only proposed by the governor, but it hasn't been
It's not a
approved.
fact, but that's a possibility.
It's a possibility, yeah. Special education tuition, we know that for the last 3 years, we have been seeing a rise in number of students that come in to the district with active IEPs, either from other states or from within our state or from other districts in the county. So we've seen an uptake in the number of classified students that we have in the district, and therefore you see an increase there to cover the tuition that we know exists, and we're gonna have to pay. That number, I remind you, would be higher if we were not adding the classes in district that we've added. So even hiring a teacher and 2 TAs for these 8 to 1 to 2 classes or 12 to 1 to 2 classes, we'll be adding another 2 next year. Still saves us considerable money from the transportation that we would be paying for these children to go to BOCES or other placements in the county. And by having them in-house in their own schools is a win-win because it's the best placement for children too. They stay in our district, right? The other number, the transferred to the special ed fund. This is one, again, that the governor has changed. We used to get reimbursement on summer school tuition to the tune of 80%, and we would cover 20. The proposal now is that the state would cover 60 and we'll cover 40. So where the state increases your fund somewhere, it takes it away someplace else, so that we have to cover more of the cost. Again, some of those special ed students have IEPs that call for year-round services, so they have to attend summer programs, and we're putting extra money into that because we anticipate having to pay 40% of those tuitions. The employee benefits, the health increase is in there. We did lower it. We've received now formal notification from New York 44 that our increase for next year will be 9.9%. There's also a TRS increase. The teacher retirement is going up. There's actually a slight ERS decrease, and there's been a decrease in other lines, because if now you would see over a 9% increase, most of that increase that you see there is health reflected. There's been a decrease in other areas such as unemployment, like health, the ERS, unemployment, and workman's comp. So that accounts for the lower there. Oh, yes, the 100,000 capital, the transfer capital fund. You'll see that that's a new one, 100,000. There was never anything there. New York State allows you to do capital improvements of up to 100,000 without that. You don't have to bond and wait then the 15 or 18 years to receive payment on those. As you know, we've cut out of maintenance and out of operations over the last few years, but there are some things that really can't wait that could be covered. For example, those units that we keep talking about at the high school, those are real maintenance issues that could close down a building. So we will be allocating 100,000 there, because you get the aid on that 100,000 the next year. You don't have to wait to get it as your usual capital aid that comes over multiple years. So we'll be allocating that money to hopefully get some of those smaller projects that can fall under that done, and be able to do them real time and get the funding on that the following year real time. Change analysis, again, you could see the different parts of the budget there, the change in the budget, even with the full day kindergarten, it would be 3%. Without the full day kindergarten, it would be 1.8%. The change in the levy, 4.9%, that stays the same because it will not be increased even with the full day kindergarten. And the use of designated fund balance stays almost the same. The foundation aid shortfall, that's the same, and that doesn't change. So even with next year's 4.9 increase in the levy, our levy to levy increase has been on the average for 12 years, less than 0.5%. So we started out in 2006 with 142 million in the levy. We say even with next year's increase, that will be the first time that we would be catching up to that or surpassing that at 148 million, but that's in a span of 12 years. The average budget to budget increase has been 1.69% in those 12 years. Again, the Myron overview, because it's so much a part of our reality in the district. We know the shift that happened from commercial to residential, and we know that the total loan, when you add the interest to that, is 369,284,964. Our children to date, up to last year, have paid 145 million of that. We still owe 223, which is basically the settlement that we started out with. And we know this is like a mortgage where those bonds, you have to pay those interests first, and then you start paying on the principal. So everything that we paid up to this point is basically interest. And now we're starting to really pay the principal. We know that the annual payment on those bonds right now is 11,450,000.
I was going to say, the hardest pill to swallow as taxpayers, we all are here, is the tax levy has not really gone up. However, that number there is it tells it all. Who's paying it, right? Or it was 60-40, now 68% falls on the residential homeowners. There's where the big monster is, and there's where when you open up that bill in September, you get a lot of computations, because you would think the levy's out of control.
Right.
It isn't, it's just a shift.
It's who pays.
Who's paying it?
And even the commercial, I don't want to say that
No,
the commercial
pays too,
share,
but-
the commercial
right.
has seen an increase
Also
because
has-
there's less commercial paying.
Right, but they're paying too, of course.
Right.
But also that amount of money that's been lost as a result. It wasn't just the bond, we also lost the revenue. Other places have lost revenue, but then have to pay back $300 million.
Right.
That's what makes us unique.
You know, new ratables do help. I mean, that line that was put in through mostly Stony Point last year did hit the assessment lines, or the assessment rolls, and it did help the people in Stony Point keeping their share of the levy down, because there was a brand new ratable adding over $1 million, I think, to the tax base in Stony Point. So, you know, if we're lucky enough to get new ratables, new commercial ratables in the community, that shift will begin to change again, and, you know, it does help the tax base in the community. So we know the formal audit back in 2014, and we know that the only recommendation on that audit was district officials should continue to closely monitor the budget and take necessary actions to maintain fiscal stability, which was great. You don't often get no negative comment on an audit. Usually they try to find something that you could improve upon, but there was nothing in that audit. We know that when we got the $4 million last year, one of the conditions is that the district would submit to a budget review, not an audit, but a budget review, to show that what we've been saying to the legislature and the governor's office, that there's this cliff in our budget coming. That is true. They were here for over a month, 3 auditors from the controller's office, and here are 2 of the comments that were made by the auditors. They found that, yes, we were actually conservative in our projections. They saw the cliff that we've been talking about. They feel that we have been prudent in terms of everything that we've done to try to keep the district afloat and sustainable. But they did say at the end that, yes, there is a reality here with that cliff coming. We know that we're always looking to engage our elected officials. And here's a list of all the meetings that we've had for the last couple of years. Most recently, meeting with all 3 on January 28th, Senator Larkin, Assemblyman Sobrowski, and Assemblyman Skoufis. They're trying to put their fiscal teams from the Assembly and the Senate together to try to find a permanent solution for the debt in North Rockland. In the meantime, we know we were giving that additional $4 million. That stretched out our reserves a little more. And hopefully, if we get any additional funding this year, that will again stretch out our reserves a little more to try to mitigate that cliff. We met also with Congresswoman Nita Lowy. She visited one of our kindergarten, or several of our kindergarten classes, and she did promise to reach out and meet with us to see how at a federal level she may be able to help us. And current activity, we're basically in a waiting pattern right now for that decision on the full day kindergarten. And that's why we're building parallel budgets, just to be ready should that extra funding come through. We showed, yes?
We have to reach out to Nita Lowy, or is she going to reach out to us?
We have reached out to her. When we went to the Capitol Conference on lobbying with NISBA, with the state association, this was one of the graphs that they showed in one of the meetings that we attended. And it's interesting. And, you know, the light blue says a lot of positive influence, and the dark blue, some positive influence. And what you see there was the feedback from legislators when asked, what of these things on the left influence your decision-making? And when you see right up on top, in-person issues and visits from constituents, and that's something that we've done every year. Contact from constituents reps. So basically, if Ida goes representing the PTA council, or our associations go, or you go representing the board, representing the community, individualized email messages. They do. We know when we're in those offices, they do read and tally those email messages or those phone calls that their staffers are there tallying up why constituents are calling. So I won't read them again all, but you can see here the things that really make more of a difference in their decision making in terms of what they listen to. And again, we always publish our list so that it's there handy for anyone in the community that wants to drop an email, wants to make a phone call and say, you know, we've been dealing with this problem in the North Rockland Central School District. We didn't create it. How can Albany help the children of North Rockland maintain the education that we're trying to maintain for them? Just to review the budget calendar, there'll be another update as we get, hopefully by March 20th, maybe a little more information as to what's happening with the budget in Albany. Definitely by the 17th, we hope to have an answer on the budget by Albany, and that is the public input session and the adoption of the budget by the board. On the 24th, we'll have another budget update, and on May 1st is our public hearing, and our final budget is available for comment, and then we know May 15th is the budget vote. And again, we have to encourage everyone to vote. We can't tell people how to vote, but I certainly hope that people know that this is an important vote, and coming out and supporting your schools, it's what adds values to our home and our community, and certainly what forms the next generation. Nothing is more important in my mind, not just because I'm an educator, but the education of young people. And we know the world that they live in and how they have to compete globally for jobs today. Giving them that firm foundation and getting them ready for that is the most important thing that we collectively can do as a people. Any other, Peg?
I was over in Westchester last Monday, and it seems like their focus is changing a little bit, the state legislators. They were talking more in view of what happened at Parkland, that we're thinking of what they can do as far as trying to drive money for safety issues is one thing that seems to be emerging on their front burners. But another thing that came up, and I think everybody's got to be prepared for it, especially us, they're not sure how logistically to do it, but charitable contributions being made like directly to the school district for people's local school taxes so that it could be deductible on their income taxes. And that has taken that seems like it's really getting a lot of chatter and a lot of talk with them. And, you know, like they're not sure how to do it yet. And it kind of concerns me that where will we be in it if it all of a sudden falls in our lap, that it's going to be us that has to manage it, you know? So, you know, I think it's just something we need to keep a close eye on, because that just emerged, those two topics, after Cabinet Conference.
Mr. Fernandez and I attended a meeting that Senator Larkin hosted of all the school districts in his district. And so really, we're the only ones from Rockland County that are under Senator Larkin. So it was mainly really Orange County school districts that were there, but law enforcement was invited as well. And our Howard Phillips was there as well. One of the trustees from Stony Point, Tom, was there as well. So, I mean, it was a very fruitful meeting. A lot of good ideas were shared in that group. And you know, we know it's a focus for everyone. We know that it's a multifaceted issue. It's not just about one thing and one solution. If it were that, all of us would have done it already. But there were a lot of good sharing ideas, and he did promise to reconvene the group in another month and give an update in terms of what may be happening in Albany. One of the things that came out of that meeting was that our schools bonds for the Smart Schools bond has been taking a very long time. We handed in our part 2 back in November, and it still hasn't been approved. There were districts there that said they handed theirs in a year ago, and it still hasn't been approved. So I have to say, Senator Larkin did follow up on that right away, and he got a bunch of senators to sign on to a letter to State Ed to say, why is this being held up? A lot of the districts have, you know, enhancements to their safety and security on these projects, and they're not, they're not being processed in a timely manner. So I have to say, at least he followed up on that right away. We'll see what happens with that. But that was one thing that at least was done, and there was some immediate follow through. I share your concern with the whole contribution of, charitable contribution and how that would work. I don't know if you would I read somewhere that you would get your tax bill and you would make a charitable contribution equal to whatever your tax bill is, or maybe half of it, and then the other half would still have to be billed as a tax bill. So I agree with you. There are a lot of question marks out there, and I would assume that since the towns collect our taxes, that would fall there, but we would probably have to partner with them to try to see what the solution might be, depending on what they come up with.
That's what they were debating. They're not, they're not.
Right, no.
Then we have to, off April 1st.
And we also know that the IRS has said
They're not sure
that they would be accepting that or not, so you might do it and it might be for naught, because they might say, you can't skirt around school taxes that way. So, yeah, there are a lot of questions in the air.
Is there any old business? Any correspondence?
No correspondence.
We've reached the section of the meeting for public comment. In order to speak to the board, I know that we have a couple of people signed in. There's a 3-minute time limit when addressing the board, and please be respectful to whoever may be speaking in their opinions. Okay. If you could announce your name and where you live.
Hi, my name is Michael Sayuda, 17 Blackwell Court, Pomona. Most of you know I've also been teaching at the high school for 25 years. A son graduated from the high school, a daughter is here at Fieldstone. And unfortunately, in those 25 years, I've been at the high school for the events at Columbine, Sandy Hook, and now at Parkland. And I'm here to ask the board to do the same thing I asked you 5 years ago. And I know that there are logistical issues, but now I might be begging a little bit. Is there anything we can do to reinstate the positions of school officers? I know there's financial issues. I understand there are logistical pieces of the puzzle, but in a budget of $220 million, I can't wrap my head around why we wouldn't do everything in our power to ensure that this community never has to feel like the communities of Littleton, Newtown, and Parkland, Florida. Certainly, I have a vested interest as an employee and as a parent, but I do believe we have a responsibility as a community. And although it's quite possible that we spent money all 10 to 12 years of having John Keeley, Rich Spada, Henry over here at Fieldstone, we might have spent money, and it's possible that we didn't need to spend the money. But I can't wrap my head around having to come out in public someday if something were to ever happen and sit here and say, what if? What if we could have done something? Everything they talk about says, in all of these instances, it's about mass murder. On any school day inside of this community, the two most populated locations in this entire community are North Rockland High School and Fieldstone Secondary School. So if somebody's looking to do mass damage, we all know where they're going. I call it secondary? I've been here a while, sorry about that. Fieldstone Middle School. The other thing we all know, in every study they've said, is all the damage happens within the first 4 to 7 minutes. So as quick as our cops are, as wonderful as they are responding, I like to believe that if there was an officer on site, within about 30 seconds, they would have engaged the shooter and without question would have saved lives. So again, I'm here now to probably beg, what can we do as a community? What extra $25, $50 from each family in this community do we need to collect to be able to pay a couple of police officers to have them stationed in our buildings?
is much more eloquent than I am. I am a graduate of North Rockland, 1979. I had 5 children already come through North Rockland. My youngest is going to graduate next year. I'm here to echo exactly what Mr. Sider said. We need to do this now. This is not something we can mess around with. We need to cut through the politics. We need to cut through the budget. We need to cut through the social issues. We need to make our kids and the people we entrust them to take care of them safe. That means every parent that volunteers. That means when you come and see my son receive an award. Because if we don't do this, it makes everything else we do here for naught. We simply have to find a way. I've been doing some research. The NRA gives grants. A lot of companies give grants. I'm willing to do corporate fundraising. I think we have a great community, and I think this can happen. And there's a lot of things we need to do. We need the school resource officers. We need armed personnel. We are blessed with a huge presence of retired military and law enforcement who are more than willing to come help us. And we haven't even explored those possibilities. Those men and women probably work for the pittance because you know what? They're their grandchildren and they're their spouses that are inside those schools. So all this other stuff needs to be put aside. We need to do this today. I don't know why New Jersey was able to do it overnight. 10 schools in New Jersey did it overnight. They cut through everything you have to go through, the bureaucracy, and did it. Why can't we? What is it going to take? You need the parents to get involved. Tons of parents get involved. This is a very giving community. So I'm here to ask the board to form a committee. This can't go on for months. We could at least post signs in front of every school saying there's an armed presence and any threat will be met with deadly force, whether it's true or not. How do they know whether it's true? And the simple fact of the matter is, they interviewed one school shooter in Colorado. He said, mentally ill as he was, he specifically chose schools that were soft targets. We are a soft target. We need to become a hard target. Unfortunately, the world has changed and we need to change with it. I bought my kid bulletproof plates for his backpack. I had to hand my kid a situational awareness special forces book about how to get off the X and how to run away. I shouldn't be limited as a parent. And not only do I need to keep my kids safe, we need to keep every kid safe. So please, let's do something.
Yeah, thank you for the comments. We have 7 properties, correct? Where we host students, not just the high school and Fieldstone. No, 8, yeah, 8 in total, right? Right, when you have at the high school extension. I know a lot of the SROs has been discussed, and that's something of great importance, and no one can debate the benefit of an SRO. The thing also is Sheriff Falco also had a proposal for security, which also helps, something we could explore and maybe look a little closer at. I think that's very important, that we have a collaborative meeting as soon as possible and discuss the options that are out there. SROs are essential because they also gather a lot of intelligence within and thwart a lot of stuff. Beforehand, a lot of that is not measured in statistics because it can be just a conversation and a big fight just got prevented as a result. The other thing, the only concerns I would have is if there's an SRO in the school and that day they happen to go sick or not there, is there an immediate replacement or not? Or they get assigned to something else, like they have court that day or something, will they be assigned? But those are logistics that can be discussed at a later time. Well, those would be my only concerns, but the benefit of it, I don't think no one can really debate. But my thing is that every property has some kind of protection. Because if you know there's 2 targets that are well protected, but there's other ones like the high school extension, some other area that it's not good. Look at Connecticut. It wasn't a high school or middle school.
perhaps it would be possible to have 2 towns just have their officers patrol the schools. I know we had 2 officers here tonight at the meeting. They park in the lot and they enter the schools
Yes.
on different occasions. Because
They've been invited to have lunch
okay.
in those schools.
Because that means something to the person. They see the police car there, maybe it doesn't look like a soft target. Something we can do in the meantime, that's great. I'm glad that we're doing it. Thank you.
School social work, Mr. Maciel, would you like to read that?
School Social Worker Week, March 4th through March 10th, 2018. Whereas social workers have the right education and experience to guide individuals, families, and communities through complex issues and choices. And whereas social workers connect individual families and communities to available resources. And whereas social workers are dedicated to improving the society in which we live. Whereas social workers are positive and compassionate professionals. And whereas social workers stand up to others to make sure everyone has access to the same basic rights, protection, and opportunities. And whereas social workers help people help themselves whenever and wherever they need it most. And whereas social workers have been the driving force behind important social movements in the United States and abroad. And now therefore be it resolved that the North Rockland Board of Education proclaims March 4th through 10th, 2018 as Professional Social Work Week, and call upon all citizens to join in the National Association of Social Workers and the North Rockland Central School District in celebration and support of the social work and the social work profession.
Second by the board, any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Kraus, would you read World Language Week?
I have a problem with first, my wife is a college teacher in Spanish, Latin American literature. But Language Week, oops. Okay, I got it. National World Language Week, March 4th to the 10th, 2018. Whereas the study of classical and modern languages, over 5,000 in the world, enhances our understanding of people, ancient and modern. And it is important that Americans learn to speak the languages of other peoples and times. And whereas the United States, a nation of immigrants, has historically benefited from the contributions of people born in other countries, gifted in all the careers that affect the quality of each citizen's life: medicine, science, technology, the arts, education, sports, government, etc. And whereas the current demographic patterns of our nation predict the fastest increase in population growth of Latinos, Spanish speakers, Asians, and speakers of over 150 languages and dialects, creating a majority, minority, non-white population by 2040. And whereas learning the languages and cultures of the countries with whom our nation's economics and businesses depend empowers our leaders with knowledge and skills for making the best decisions and is crucial to the defense of our nation. And whereas the benefit of studying another language is to experience the process of second language acquisition, to realize how long it takes to achieve fluency in a second language, perhaps making students more tolerant and patient of recently arrived immigrants who will need that same time. And whereas the knowledge of other languages allows greater access to information, resulting in an increased choice of resources and a richer base of knowledge. And whereas communicating with people from any community in the world happens on a daily basis by students through the internet, making cross-cultural communication skills and valuable asset, preparing them for a successful future. Now, therefore be it resolved that the North Rockland Board of Education and the superintendent of schools recognizes the celebration of National World Language Week, March 4th to the 10th, 2018, and encourages all residents of the community to recognize the richness of our language and cultural diversity.
Second by the whole board. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Mrs. Romano, you have all four members of the here.
Two?
Yeah. I think that's a fair, we're gonna say it.
Harry, would you please read the retirement of Dr. Raina Martinez?
She's laughing. You can't take it back now.
Raina Martinez, whereas Dr. Raina Martinez has served the North Rockland Central School District with dedication for a total of 30 years, and whereas she has submitted her resignation for retirement purposes, therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, hereby accepts with deep regret the resignation of Dr. Raina Martinez, Special Subject Foreign Language Teacher, effective June 30th, 2018, and be it further resolved that the Board of Education wishes Dr. Martinez and her family much happiness in the future.
Second by the whole board. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. These are good things, Mom. All in favor, any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. And we wish you very much health and happiness in your retirement. We're thinking of you all. Congratulations. Non-instructional. Mrs. Ogilvy, would you like to read Kenneth Andrews?
Whereas Mr. Kenneth Andrews has served the North Rockland Central School District with dedication for a total of 30 years and 9 months, and whereas he has submitted his resignation for retirement purposes, therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, hereby accepts with deep regret the resignation of Kenneth Andrews, Information Services and Equipment Specialist, Network System, effective April 9, 2018. And be it further resolved that the Board of Education wishes Mr. Andrews and his family much happiness in the future.
Second by the whole board. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We would like to wish Mr. Andrews much health and happiness in his retirement.
Whereas Ms. Barbara Rashcott has served the North Rockland Central School District with dedication for a total of 14 years and 3 months, and whereas she has submitted her resignation for retirement purposes, therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, hereby accepts with deep regret the resignation of Barbara Rashcott, Teacher Aide, effective March 5th, 2018, and be it further resolved that the Board of Education wishes Ms. Rashcott and her family much happiness in the future.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0, and we wish Barbara Rashcott very much health and happiness in her retirement.
I notice these retirements are very specific to the months, you know? I would have been 24 years one day. Okay. Ms. Marie Pilo, whereas Ms. Maureen Pilo has served the North Rockland Central School District with dedication for a total of 18 years and 7 months, and whereas she has submitted her resignation for retirement purposes, therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, hereby accepts with deep regret the resignation of Maureen Pilo, teacher aide, effective April 23rd, 2018, and be it further resolved that the Board of Education wishes Mrs. Pilo and her family much happiness in the future.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0, and we wish Ms. Pilo much health and happiness in her retirement. We do need to pull 20.03, time was nominated by Use of the consent agenda permits the Board of Education to make more effective use of time by adopting a single motion to cover those relatively routine matters which are included. Any member of the board who wishes to discuss individually a particular piece of business on the consent agenda may so indicate, and that item will be transferred to the regular agenda for consideration and a separate vote, thus preserving the right of all board members to be heard on any issue. Motion. Mr. Fever, second by Mr. Fernandez. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. I will take a motion to go into a very brief executive session. Mr. Fernandez, second by Mr. Masiello. It is to discuss a legal and a personnel item. We will not be coming back out after the end of the executive session. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0.